Is Doge going too far? Is it been too much? Let's talk about that right now. Hello, my fellow Ripplers. This is Chris Miles, your cash flow expert and anti-financial advisor. This show is for you. You work so hard for your money, and you're now ready for your money to start working harder for you today. You want that freedom. You want the cash flow now, not 30 or 40 years from now, but you want it today. So you can be work optional. You work because you want to, not because you have to, because you have more than enough passive income to be able to create the life that you love with those you love right now. And guys, it's not just about getting rich, it's about living a rich life, because as you're blessed financially, you have a greater capacity to bless the lives of others. Because the truth is, you cannot truly hit the measure of your creation, your potential, and help others do the same without you becoming rich. And that's what I'm here to do today. Thank you for allowing me to create that ripple effect through you. Thank you for tuning in and binging and sharing with others today. By the way, like, for this ripple effect to happen, we can't do this without you. That's the truth. And I appreciate you guys have been sharing this and doing that. If you wouldn't mind, subscribe, share an episode, like this episode, whatever it might be, like, show your love today. Heck, if you haven't even, if you're listening to this, and if it's not on YouTube, if you're listening to this, feel free to give us give it a quick little shout out, like give us a little 5-star review. Unless you think we suck, then please don't give us the 5-star review. Well, you won't give it to us anyways, but you can avoid not going through all that extra effort trying to give us that non 5-star review. But again, we would love to have you show us some love here, especially if this has been of any value to you and your family. Please do so today. All right, so let's talk about DOGE. Elon Musk, Trump, DOGE, all these things happening right now. The Department of Government Efficiency, right? Sounds awesome in theory, but is it too much? Is it going too far? Is this something that's actually creating a bigger monster or something worse than what we'd having? Now, I know this is a stupidly hot topic. It shouldn't even be this hot of a topic, but it is, because there's so much really divisiveness that's going around this, right? Because depending on which side of the aisle you are on, I mean, if you were a bigger Trump fan before, now you're a huge Trump fan today. And even though there could be some hypocrisies here, you still don't care. You don't give a crap. If you hated Trump, you hate him even more today. And now you hate Elon Musk because, what is he doing? He's not even an elected government official. He shouldn't be a part of this either, right? And so there's all these two sides screaming and arguing at each other, which I think is just stupid. My best advice to you, if you want greater happiness in your life, turn off the freaking news. Turn it off, because honestly, this is stupid. Okay. This is so dumb. I mean, so many times, and not to mention people are freaking out about flying on airplanes again, right? It's like, okay, come on, guys. Like, still, if we had on the news every single traffic accident that was out there today, it would be ridiculous, right? We know this, and I get it, that all this stuff this is not a humorous thing, right? I get that. The fact that there are people's literal families at stake with what's going on with all these cuts, these budget cuts, and even like department cuts, and what's happening. Have they overstepped their bounds, right? And so let me talk about this. Now, just to give you some perspective here, I come from more of a libertarian perspective, right? Yes, I've registered for Democrat. I've registered as a Republican. Now I'm like, I don't like either party. And so I'm kind of like, I try to stay independent of all this stuff, right? And I'm not saying, and the reason I say I don't really like either party is because of how just petty it's been getting lately, and maybe you agree, maybe you don't, and I don't care. It's fine. This is not a political show. I'm not really trying to talk about it, because really there are some economic factors at play here that could be affecting your own bank account right now if you pay close attention. So I want to talk about this because it is a topic that could actually affect you financially, even if you're not a government worker. Okay, and it may be different than what they're saying in the news. So I've been thinking about this a lot lately. Now, I like to go back to what the founding fathers initially wanted for this country. They had studied lots of different societies, organizations, civilizations, what worked, what didn't. They realized that the government was necessary, but it needed to be more of a minarchy, not a monarchy. Minarchy, look it up, it's about minimal government, right? They wanted more of a minarchy because they wanted to know that the government's there to protect us from slavery, which didn't always work in the beginning, protect us from even just our lives being threatened, from us being killed, and of course, that pursuit of happiness. What does that mean? The freedom to have personal property is how they defined it, is be able to prosper, be able to grow, which is one of the beautiful things of our country, is that anybody can start from anywhere in any socioeconomic category and be able to work their way up. Even though it can be challenging, they can still do it in this country. That's awesome. So government was there to protect us, right? And what's happened is, especially with some of these agencies that we're looking at here that's being cut, that these are agencies that, although they sound great, they sound like they're here to protect the consumer, they really believe that we're idiots. They really believe that for whatever reason that we're too dumb to know the difference, so they can step in. This consumer protection bureaus, right? All this kind of stuff. I know that FCC does this kind of stuff too. Now I get it. Like there should be ways to expose people, but do you have to have a government agency to expose people, or can you have people expose people, right? And by the way, that's on their dime instead of on the government's dime. So I get it. Like you're like, hey, we got to protect people and financial protection. They're just doing this to pad their pockets. And I'm not totally oblivious that maybe Trump, maybe Elon Musk, maybe some of these guys might be trying to pad their pockets. That's very possible. But I'll say this. Let me ask you this question. Is the government better at spending than private business? Is the government better at managing the money, that's our dollars, than the business? Who's in real charge here? Who's in charge of the government? What was the whole point of the Constitution talking about we the people, right? We are essentially the government. We elect officials to go into these government positions, hoping that they're going to do it for our best interest. The problem is with government budgets, and anybody who's ever worked for government knows this to be true already, that governments, whatever they touch gets more expensive, right? Governments, I mean, when they try to like put price hikes, like price limits on gasoline, for example, they try to do that in the state of Hawaii. You know what happened when the government stepped in? Well, one, they got to bump up the tax on the gasoline costs. But what's happening is that they end up surpassing, they end up getting more expensive because, again, the government made it more expensive. Do you know that every time you gas up, you're getting taxed? Every time you buy something in the store, you're getting taxed in most states, right? You're getting taxed on your income. You're getting taxed on just about everything. Whatever you're doing, you're getting taxed left and right. Your cell phone has taxes. Your utilities have taxes. Everything is sort of throw taxes on and passing it to you as the consumer. You might think, oh, I'm in a 24% tax bracket or 32% tax bracket. But in truth, you're more like a 50 to 60% tax bracket because you're paying taxes on everything. And it's ridiculous. It's getting so bad that I'm happy that there's some oversight happening here. Now, that being said, is DOGE going too far? Is Trump and Elon Musk, are they going too far with this? And arguably, you might say yes. You might say that they're going a little bit too hard, too fast. Do they have all the facts straight to know where to cut? Or are they just looking at numbers? Because the truth is that, yes, numbers do tell a story, right? And there's no doubt. But is it the full story? Are there unintended consequences that if we just go too fast, we don't really know? Now, I don't want to get hung up in red tape, and I'm sure that's their reasoning too, is that they don't want to get hung up in red tape and get caught up. And so they're just trying to go at it as fast as possible to cut the fat. Because the truth is, there is too much spending. The government debt's going up way too fast. That's the truth. And we haven't had a president since Bill Clinton talk about balancing the budget. Remember that? Balance the budget. For those of you old enough to remember, that was a Democrat. By the way, he talked more like a Republican compared to Republicans today. He sounded like a Republican in a lot of ways. Even Obama sounded less liberal than Democrats today, right? That's the thing. They talk about, they want to make these cuts. They want to be responsible with money. And absolutely, there should be responsibility and accountability as a result of that. But again, who is better with their money? Is it us? Is it the average American? Because I just, those elected officials aren't necessarily always great with money either. It's not like they're great, CFOs or accountants, right? They're not like even like business owners. I can tell you from my experience being a business owner for the last 23 years now, that I had to learn a lot of different financial principles. I had to learn like what's useful and what's not. So yes, when they're going in and you have like the US aid, especially has been the big one targeted, right? They're like trying to destroy that sucker. And yeah, there's been like over a couple 100,000 layoffs already. DC has been affected the most. Obviously, there's a lot of people losing their jobs. What's going to happen with real estate in DC? Good question. Is this going to create a ripple effect through the country? Good question, right? There's even some workers that took like their little leave. That's like an extent, kind of a gradual leave in a sense, right? If they get severance and all that kind of stuff, cool. Maybe this is more like a company, but they're going in like a corporation that's trying to cut their costs. Now, here's the thing, because all of us that have hearts, it confuses our brains sometimes when it comes to this whole layoff situation, right? Because in business, and I know this for a fact, like I look at my people like family. Like I don't want to cut anybody if I would never have to. It would have to be something egregious usually for me to want to cut people. Now, what if my business of Money Ripples, let's just say, because of course I don't really need the money from Money Ripples. It's kind of extra, for me to be able to give this message out to you guys, right? Like Really, I would probably make more money not doing money ripples sometimes than to do when I have money ripples. But the truth is this, is that like, if I'm looking at my business, and let's just say that the business is going to be sacrificed. Let's say that I'm having to look at this business of this is failing. Like, let's just say we're not profitable. We're not making money. I'm going to have to make some hard decisions. I can try to cut back expenses as far as possible. And some of these are expenses. These are not just people being laid off, although that's a big focus. Expenses have to be cut. I might have to sell off assets. They're talking about selling off property. By the way, do you know Chicago did this too? Chicago, this was about 15, probably almost 20 years ago now. Chicago actually was running out of cash. Like they were spending way too much. Decided they're going to start selling off some of their government properties to private people and get the money, which is great. It's like, great, sell off your whatever assets you however you claimed it over time, sell them off, get rid of them, and get it off your books, and get that cash back in. So they had to do that to start paying for their government spending. So we've seen this happen before. So yeah, I would sell off, different assets if I could, if it made sense, as long as it doesn't sacrifice the company. Yes, I would reduce expenses as long as, again, it doesn't sacrifice the production of the company, right? And of course, when it came to workers, if I had to, I might have to trim down the workforce. I might have to cut those expenses because payroll from our company is a big cost. And I have to trim it a little bit. Now, I wouldn't want to do it at all, but I would do it. Now, the problem is like, because of all the tweets and everything coming out, like there's like, oh, it's wasteful spending. And like, it's like almost like this head on the chopping block. It's insensitive. Yeah, you bet there's going to be a little bit of pushback, even from people that might agree. And you might even argue too. You're like, wait, even if you're like, as a Republican, right? You're like, don't want more government, but look at this. The government's overreaching here. Are we seeing this happening with DOGE where they're doing too much beyond what's beyond their scope of control? Yes, there's some gray area there. Yeah, there's some things they could be doing, but is it something they should be doing? If you've been following this podcast, you're probably looking for great ways to create passive income right now, right? Well, we got you covered here with Central Lending. Central Lending specializes in alternative investments that actually are designed to create steady returns and long-term financial security for you and your family. Now, they prioritize transparency. They love, building those strong relationships, giving you that confidence and peace of mind, knowing that you have your money working harder for you, so you don't have to work so hard for that money. You want to learn more how to do that? Go to centrallending.com and check out what they've got today to create your passive income and wealth creation right now. No, I get it. I'm not trying to be a Trump hater. I'm not trying to say that Elon Musk is evil. I'm not saying that at all. I actually think that business owners do have a better propensity for being able to cut costs better than somebody else. And you guys remember the movie Dave with Kevin Kline? You guys remember that movie? I thought that was a great movie. And, and I was thinking it was interesting when he's going there trying to balance the budget, right? They're trying to do that. He was a CPA, I kind of view what they're trying to do ideally, what they're trying to do with DOGE being like that, right? It's like, how can we cut the budget so they could actually go and help some, some of the starving children or whatever it was. I can't remember what the need was. One of the things was, hey, we're paying for advertising dollars to convince Americans to keep buying the American car they already bought. Why are we paying money on that? Can you tell that? Could you tell a kid in their face, say, hey, I'm sorry, we can't help you because of that? I get it. That was even more from like a democratic kind of point of view of like, hey, we're trying to create more things to help bail people out, welfare and things like that. Welfare is another thing. Department of Education is another one that's on the chopping block. Department of Education has been notoriously known for being overloaded. But of course, I guarantee the news articles are going to come out saying, oh, we're sacrificing our children. Like you're robbing our children's futures and their education. And America's already bad with it. And that's the point. We pay more for education than other countries do. And yet our education is not as good as the other countries. What's wrong here, right? Stupid in America, but with John Stossel is a really good one to watch if you want to see that kind of thing. So anyways, I'm not opposed to making cuts, to making hard decisions with these departments and maybe even eliminating complete departments altogether that may not be serving it. They're just extra departments that really don't have a need. And then it's wasteful, right? And we've seen wasteful spending already happen. Like I know my dad would always talk about the story of one of his friends because my dad was in the automotive parts business, so he would help sell automotive parts to dealerships, to garages and things like that. And he would talk to these guys. And one guy left a garage to go work for a government agency, and he was working on cars there. And the first day that guy's going and like just working on cars, banging it out. And at the end of the day, his boss calls him into the office. His manager calls him in. And he says, "Listen, do you like your job here?" And my dad's friend said, "Yeah, I do." He's like, "What are you doing?" "I'm fixing cars. That's what I've done for years." It's like, here's the thing. we only get so many cars. And these are like police cars and more public service type cars. He's like, we only get so many of these vehicles in every day. If we work on these and get them fixed too fast, we don't have work. And when we don't have work, guess what happens? They cut the budget on us. And therefore we don't have jobs. He's like, I can guarantee this. And this is what his manager said to him. He's like, I can guarantee this. If it became a choice between your job and mine, it's going to be your job. So slow the work down. So this guy, although he worked for a private garage and they knew that, speed was about profitability, right? Making more money. But because governments, when they deal with these agencies are about the budget, they don't want to reduce their budget because they want to have more money to spend. They'll try to find reasons to spend that money, right? They'll try to find some excuse to be able to have that money keep coming in. And so for him, the guy had to slow down. He had to basically go at a turtle's pace, fixing these government vehicles so that he could have a job. This has been, so anybody who knows people have been in government work, it's not that a lot of these people, and there's a lot of good public servants out there that are there to help Americans, right? They want to help people. That's why they're there. But anybody who's been in that space knows that there's waste just like this everywhere. Government contracts, people will hike up their numbers. That's why a lot of companies will go after government contracts so they know they can hike up those numbers so they can get that better government contract, right? Get better pay. They'll overcharge. They'll charge at least double or triple what they would in the private industry. So the argument would be, shouldn't we have more private industry involved? And shouldn't we have it less on the government's dime and finding ways to get private industry to be innovative? Because the truth is, government's good at spending, but they don't generate revenue. The IRS, we generate the revenue to pay them for all this stuff that's being wasted. If you knew you kept, giving your kid and they're just blowing your money left and right, would you keep giving that kid money? Of course not. You'd say, you know what? You're going to have to take a hard look at your life, prioritize. I'm all about trying to pay to help you get with this essentials, right? But you go and take, you ask me for $20 and you go blow it. I'm not going to keep giving you $20 every time. You ask for $100 and you blow it. I'm not going to give you $100 because you're a bad steward of that money. Governments are notoriously bad stewards. So I think the majority of us as Americans would probably agree this has been the case with the government. What you might disagree with is what DOGE and Elon Musk are doing, which is, are they doing it a little too much? Is it too harsh? Is that happening? Because it's good to get that money back in our pockets, especially if it's in our pockets as citizens, right? And especially if we're good stewards of our money, we can make more of that. This is why I'm not opposed to not taxing large businesses and corporations, right? Even small businesses. I love the fact that small businesses get it because one, small businesses employ a lot of America today. Two, also, and not just because I'm a small business owner, but I know that as a small business owner, I'm going to be even wiser with my money than sometimes even little large corporations are. Now, sometimes large corporations are better with money than small business owners. There's no doubt. Okay. I'm not saying it's like one or the other, but there's a reason why they do that. That whole trickle down of economics they talk about that goes back. Now, granted, I'm not about crony capitalism. I'm not about what's not even capitalism, right? Where a CEO, like a CEO of big banks, where they get bailed out by government money, then they pay themselves bonuses for getting a bailout money. No, that should be a loan. That shouldn't be bailout and then you never pay it back. It's like, you better be able to pay that money back now, back to us, because it was coming out of our pockets to bail you out for your bad decisions, right? That's the thing. So, again, like I can go back and forth on these different sides of the aisles. The real issue is, what's it going to do to your money? Because the justification of DOGE is, hey, wouldn't you like to get 10, 20, $100,000 back maybe, from tax rebate because you found this money that was being wasted? Well, who doesn't want that? But at what cost? That's the real debate. What is the cost of these savings, right? What is it creating? Is it going to create a ripple effect? Well, because here's the problem, guys. The GDP, your gross domestic product, this is what the stock market's based on, the value of it. Most of the GDP for the last year or so has been government spending. Not because private business has been making money, but because governments have been spending more money. The government's basically overinflating. That's where a lot of the inflation has been happening, right? It's like they keep taking that money and funding it in and trying to use that money to then keep inflating more things, creating more jobs, but they're not creating jobs. They're just creating more waste. So the question is, at what point do you rip the Band-Aid off? Does DOGE, they just rip the Band-Aid off now? It's going to hurt temporarily, but could it fix it long-term? Maybe. On the flip side, could this be happening anyways? We're just building up to something bigger and worse because you just create a bigger and bigger bubble. And then finally you can't justify it anymore. You can't justify the spending and it's gone, right? That's what I kind of see as a possible problem here. So, Yes, I think this would be bad if the GDP does actually get back to reality and find out that our economy is not really growing at all. We get to that point, and even shows it shrinking because they start firing all this government work. I can guarantee your stocks could be at risk. So if you have retirement accounts that are all based on these stocks, especially US based stocks, you're at risk. Now that could also ripple effect out to things like China and other countries too. So you got to be aware of this, that this doesn't just mean that you can just go, oh, I'll just get out of the US and go into Europe, because it'll affect Europe too. If we suffer, they suffer. If we suffer, China suffers, right? Because all these, we're all interconnected. And so that's where your money could be at risk. Yes, it could put more money in people's pockets, but that band-aid being ripped off and showing the truth of what's really happening, where the GDP was only being inflated by the government spending, if this stops, this is where you're going to start seeing that the stocks are way, way overvalued, and there could be a massive correction that could affect your retirement, which means that you got government workers that are quitting, and if their money's in the stock market, they get a double whammy, because not only did they lose their jobs, but then they also lose their retirements, right? Now they might got pensions or whatever, fine, that will help out. But any of us that have retirement accounts, right, we're affected. We're impacted by this. So is Doge overreaching? Is Doge going too far with this? I think that's a very, very legitimate possibility. Arguably, yes, it could be. I'm not saying it is, but definitely they're going really hard, really fast, and that may be something we're not ready for. So what's the answer there? The answer would be, let's make sure there's accountability on both sides, right? Yeah, look at it, clean it up, find where the leakage is, and then also get Congress involved to say, even though there's a lot of issues there with them being paid by lobbyists and whatnot, but at least getting like the oversight committees involved to say, hey, let's look at this here. Let's look at this realistically. Is this something we should really have? And they're going to argue about it. It's going to drag out longer, but that might be something that creates the right balance where we still have action, but there's still some accountability for them. So it's not just them running rampant and then pay the consequences later. I don't know what the consequences are going to be, honestly. All I know is that it's not just jobs at risk. It could be your own retirement that's at risk right now with what's going on. So, that's my 2 cents. Again, I hope my ideal is government spending gets under control. We start balancing that budget, maybe start paying down the deficit instead of running it up all the time. Getting that under control, that would be ideal. That would be best for our country long term. Short term, it might hurt a lot. It actually might hurt you. Even though you've been supporting this, it could actually hurt you too. So just be aware, have your eyes open, stop listening to the news. If you want happiness, turn off the freaking news and get away from social media and everything else that's been blowing this up, trying to get you to stay on their sites longer because of all the drama they try to create for you. You don't need more drama in your life. You need to focus on what you need to do right now, what's best for you in your situation and your family so that you can create freedom today. That's my challenge to you. Make it a wonderful and prosperous week. We'll see you later.